I was invited to do the remake of this film. It's one of the really best, soundtracks for a film ever made. Mr. Kubrick was someone that really knew about music. That's a proper visionary. What were they thinking when they made these incredible 3 movies? I'm a frustrated musician. I tried to be a musician. I couldn't do it. I don't think there's a single actress that doesn't love this film.
My life is opera.
So it's one of the 2 last video clubs in Paris. How do you feel in these kind of spaces, and do they hold a specific place for you in your cinematography making?
DVDs are, in my bloodstream. That's how I grew up. At the beginning was obviously VHS, and then I witnessed how it swapped to DVD. But it's a very beautiful place. It's very moving. It's like opening your, like a treasure box with old memories and movies that somehow educated me and transformed me and made me a filmmaker. It's beautiful and scary at the same time because there's so many movies and the energy here, it's deep but it's motivating. I think it's just every movie has a story in my life, and even if I don't love it, it's something that it clicks a memory. So just walking around, it's just it hits me in all kind of directions. It's beautiful. Yeah. I see here that you have a number of movies from Werner Herzog, and this movie was made in Peru, so near where I live. I'm from Chile. I live there, and it's the second movie that they did together with Klaus Kinski. They did first Fitzcarraldo, and then they did this one, and it's I don't know, I really love the idea of madness and poetry that is in these films, and both Fitzcarraldo and Aguirre. And I think it's a beautiful interaction between man and nature. Nature often is very difficult in cinema. It becomes only a background. It's very difficult to make a movie where nature has a real implication, where it becomes a real character. So I think Mr. Herzog really did something beautiful here. And then there's this one here, these 3 movies by Kieslowski. I love the 3 of them, but particularly Blue.
J'ai pas encore commencé. J'ai mis le travail de côté le jour de mon départ.
I think it's a movie about how could you really feel the music? And the process of creating something, even though the composer is not alive and the character of Juliette Binoche is there to somehow protect and keep the work. I was very impressed on the sensibility of Kieslowski on how to sort of deal and transmit music in a movie. I thought it was very beautiful, and I will never forget this trilogy. Yeah.
And music in your cinema is really important. I mean, your first movie was about music. Now there's this new one about music and opera. Yeah. So it makes sense that.
Yeah, it really hit me when I saw it. Music in my movies are, I don't know, are always a little act of revenge. I'm a frustrated musician. I tried to be a musician. I couldn't do it. So I try to work with music and musicians that I admire, and try to, to connect certain images with certain kind of music that moves me and make me feel that I am creating something that is very hard to determine. I think it's beautiful when you have an image or a sequence of images, and then you put some music on it, and then the combination of both creates something that is very hard to determine. Only by each people would do it, and I think that's something beautiful. It's the cocktail of cinema, I call it, which is, I think it's interesting.
Tell me how it felt to be on stage.
An exaltation, an intoxication. I thought the stage itself would burn.
Well, this is like a Bible. You have 20 Ozu films here. It's very hard to I don't know, to focus on any of them. But I feel that Ozu is one of those filmmakers that, like every movie, it's himself, and every film, there's something from him, and that's an author. That's a proper visionary. But I think Ozu was someone that brought his desire and his confusion and his somehow his necessity to understand the world through his characters. And I say confusion in a good way. I think we expect from artists to always be so determined, and sometimes when someone is struggling with the stories that they're telling, there's something new in there, and I think that's, I don't know, I think it's very motivating. The master. And this film from Mr. Kieslowski, copy conform.
You took so long in the bathroom, of course I fell asleep.
Quoi? Mais j'étais en train de me préparer, tu rigoles ou quoi? J'étais en train de me faire belle pour toi.
I really love it. Maybe it's not the film that everyone would focus when think about Mr. Kieslowski. They would think about Close Up or other movies, but this one, I think it's beautiful because it's so simple. It's about relationships and about art too. I think the idea of the copy, I think, I don't know, if you walk around here, you would probably find many ideas that were copied by others, and that's how culture is made. It's like the idea of printing something over and over again, and that copy becomes something new every time because someone else somehow rethought about it, refelt it, and I think that's something that stay with me. And I really love what Juliette Binoche did in the film. It's very beautiful, and she's just wonderful, just like in Blue, in the one from Kieslowski.
And what's funny with this one is that the actor William Schimmel,
yes,
yeah, he's an opera singer, and I think this is one of his only roles.
Yeah, no, I know the story quite well. The only time that I met Mr. Kieslowski when he was about to make that movie, so I had the chance to talk to him about it, and yeah, it was. He was looking for someone that was not an actor. But then we have Alice here with this beautiful movie. I think it's one of the great contemporary European filmmakers. It's difficult because it's hard to describe a film that can only be seen. There's something so particular to her. It's like in La Quimera, the last film she did also. The movies that I could talk for hours, but it wouldn't make much sense, I think. There's something hidden in here, in her soul, that I would recommend. Not only this film, like any movie from her. It's something so undescribable, and the relationships of families. I think it's about, I don't know, maybe it's a filmmaker about family. I don't know. And I had the chance to work with Alba, her sister in Maria, and Alba is fantastic. So I got to be close to, you know, one of the sisters, which is fantastic, of course. You know, part of the problem of being here, or the challenge of being here, is to try to talk about things that you shouldn't be talking about. David Lynch just died, and he was probably the one who said it in the most simple way. So why would I talk about a film where everything is in the film that I want to say about it? But we still do it. I guess it's good. Why not? Okay, so here. Medea by Pier Paolo Pasolini was the only movie that Maria Callas did in her entire life. She was invited many times to do many movies. She never did it. Two things that are very interesting. One is that she played Medea in the opera many times. It's a slightly different story that is in the opera and in the film. So she knew the character really well. And she decided to make this movie because she was very close friend with Pasolini. But during the film and after the movie was released, the movie was not successful at the time at all. Something happened between them. I don't know the details or the gossip, but they never talked again. And then Pasolini was killed, you know, outside Rome in early 70s, and she felt really bad because they could never somehow talk to each other again. There's if you can find it, there's a very beautiful letter, interchange in between Pasolini and Maria Callas during the production, and it was the most beautiful interaction between a director and an actress that I have ever read. It was hard for me because I found it only in Italian, so I was able to translate them. But he was writing to her about what they did every day, and he would explain what he felt. And it's just a pure act of poetry all the time. And she would write back with a very particular sensibility, and also showing how well she would understand the character and how a great writer she was. Actually, it's a beautiful, very particular movie of a classic.
I didn't know it was it's her only role. She didn't even.
She never ever played. In another movie, even though she was asked to play many times. And she did it, when she realized that maybe her voice wasn't that great anymore, and maybe she took the chance, but the movie was killed in the time. The press at the time was really mean with Pasolini and with her, of course, so
yeah. It doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean anything. What it means, which is this, it's like I don't know how to say his name, Apichaton, the Thai, Apichaton Bordon, yeah, he did this movie called Cemetery of Splendor, which is, it's a place of splendor, of old things that they meant something when they were released, but the only meaning of a movie really is about time. I think time is what really can define, what a movie can mean in culture, how it interacts with other movies. This place can be scary, but also very splendorous. It combines both things. The story of this movie is based on a story, but it's a short story of Julio Cortázar, the Argentinian writer. It's a beautiful film.
What do we do then?
I send you the photographs.
No, I want them now.
Again, how do you describe this film? I could tell you that there's a photographer, there's a model, there's a crime, there's things here, but I don't know how he was able to see this, how he was able to, to think about the sensibility of the characters of the story. This is what happens when I see a great movie. I admire the filmmaker, not only because he did the film, but because he saw it before. He was able to have a vision, an idea of what this movie can be. And now that it's made, it's fantastic, you can see it, but I'm always curious on what triggered the idea. And it's so particular and so bold, and I don't know, this is unforgettable, and it just exists in me in a moving way.
Does it happen to you? To see your movie before?
I don't know. It's hard to talk about my own process, but I do have images. But I don't know if I understand or see the tone of the film before I make it. Maybe as I'm making it, it comes up. I don't know, exactly what was Antonioni's process, but there's definitely something that he saw, and he found us making it. And there's also a film about photography. I think I consider myself a photographer before a filmmaker, and I think when you look at the world through a lens, as you're doing it now, everything changes to a direction that is very hard to precisely see before, and that is I think the exercise of cinema. That is where somehow the danger it is, that you don't know exactly what's gonna come out after it goes through, the lens, this film. So it makes it more random in a good way, and that is the risk, and that is what the poetic act. If we would know exactly what it would be, then all these movies here would be an act of engineering, and they're not. We're not building a bridge here. We're not, or a building with 17 apartments. We're doing something that it's like trying to hold water in your hands, and then it just drips away, and then your hands are wet. That's all. It's all you get, but it's a lot. Well, this film, It's one of the movies that Mr. Buñuel did in Mexico. It's called Los Olvidados, The Forgotten. It's very beautiful because he was able to capture the loneliness of poverty without the sort of the cosmetic perspective that a lot of times cinemas, when they capture poverty, can have. You know, it's a very dangerous thing when you want to film people that is struggling, that is dealing with poverty. And I think he showed his you know, he's someone that obviously filmed such a beautiful surrealistic movies, and then when he wanted to do a movie that was very realistic, he did this masterpiece, you know. And it's like when you have filmmaker like David Lynch, who does all these beautiful surreal films, and then he goes and does The Straight Story, which is about this old man just driving around, and it's beautiful.
I'm having a little engine trouble.
What the heck is that you're driving there?
If he wanted, he could have had a career doing those films, and just this one, because he wanted. You know, it's just like Buñuel doing this film, this realistic film in Mexico. You know, and I don't know. That speaks of someone that really knows what he's doing. You think it's accidental, you know, or just, oh, he's lucky here, but that's why so many people try to copy, whether it's Buñuel or Lynch, and bad advice, don't do it. It's not an accident, you know. It's not something that just happened to him. It's again, someone that saw something before and then just made it happen. Well, can we start with this one?
And guess what else? We went bowling and I made 4 strikes! Yeah, and we got to ride around in Dad's car.
Wow.
Hey, Liv.
Hey.
It's a movie on how to capture time. I think Linklater saw it really well, was able to understand that he could make a movie with people that is growing over the last, I think it's like 10 years. I was in shock and very, very moved when I saw this film. I think it's not only a movie that has the trick, you know, the trick of having people, you know, filming them every year and then growing up on the screen, but you get to be part of the family as an audience, and you feel for them, and you are mesmerized by nature, how we age, and he did it in a way interesting and beautiful. Linklater is for sure one of the great Americans living filmmakers, probably with Paul Thomas Anderson, I think, to me, maybe the Coen brothers as well. But this film, I think it's a true diamond, this film. This movie is maybe likely to be some of the less known films from Stanley Kubrick.
It was only a few miles through the forest to the area occupied by their Prussian allies, where this officer's uniform and papers should allow him to travel without suspicion and stay ahead of the news of his desertion, which would be sure to follow.
This one I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen this movie? Oh, wow. Well, good news. You have a great movie ahead of you. I truly love it. I think I've seen this movie many, many, many times, over 30 times. I don't know. I think it's a farce on Europe, particularly England in the 18th century, and I think it's a beautiful understanding on something very simple that I think this movie is focused on. It's the idea of satisfaction. It's all built, to me, in the absurdity of satisfaction as a human necessity. It's probably one of the best music choices that proves that Mr. Kubrick was someone that really knew about music. And the actors and everything, but I think it's a very funny film. It's a dark comedy, I believe. It also has certain technical aspects that are very particular. He shot many sequences with only with candlelight, that is very known. So he made these very particular lenses that were very sensitive to the light and so on. But besides the technical aspects, I think it's a fascinating movie that is just you know, a good farce, and a good farce is always something that I would respect. They're not easy to make. Look at this film from Mr. Cronenberg, Les Promesses de l'Ombre. Yeah.
What the fuck you think you're going? We've got to celebrate. Come here. Help me with the bottles.
I really like this film, and that's how I got to know Steve Knight, who wrote this film and wrote 2 movies I did, Spencer and Maria. And it's a very particular story. I really love what Viggo Mortensen does here, and Naomi as well, and of course Vincent Cassel. But it's an interesting story, and again, you know, it's like this is a kind of movie that shows you that someone like Cronenberg, that has built his career doing completely different movies, more in the horror, mental, sort of psychological space, suddenly does a movie that is more grounded, more realistic, and that is based on Russians living in London, and pulls up something that is completely, you know, out of the blue for what you think he could do. And then he just does this incredible film. But again, that's how I got to know Paul Webster, who produced Spencer, and of course Steve Knight, who wrote it. Oh yes. Well, this is a movie that I'm sure it's very important for a lot of actors, and actresses, I would say.
What the hell are you talking about? You didn't do anything wrong. It was just the way he was looking. Billy was looking at you this way.
I don't think there's a single actress that I've worked or known in any part of the world that doesn't love this film. And Gina Rowlands, A Woman Under the Influence, it's just a classic, and it's a movie that has the most incredible performance from both Peter Falk and obviously from Gina Rowlands. But it's a movie that has such a life, and it's so irreverent and so moving and simple. Cassavetes has that in many movies. It's the simplicity, you know, and simple things are very hard to do. I was reading, you know, this painter, French painter Degas, and he said that painting was very easy if you don't know how to do it, but once you know how to do it, it's very difficult. Probably with movies are the same, and I think that a proof of that is the simplicity of this film, that is a mental construction during very specific social spaces in the United States, of a woman that has a perception of reality that is fascinating and crazy and probably very volatile. You know, it's something that is very hard to capture.
Stop what you're doing.
But he did it in this film. And again, you know, maybe this is the heart of the conversation of this visit to this shop. How did he see this film before he made it? Same as this one. How did they do it? What were they thinking when they made these incredible 3 movies? These filmmakers, whether it's Kubrick or Linklater, or of course Mr. John Cassavetes. It's very, very interesting, and it's beautiful. I was invited to, at some point of my life, to do the remake of this film.
Say hello to my little friend.
This movie is already a remake from a Howard Hawks film, which is a very good movie. You should see the original Scarface. And I worked for a while with Universal to do this film again. And it didn't happen for many, many reasons. We talk about enough about it. I think this film is obviously an incredible performance. It's obviously incredible what Brian De Palma did, but it's the script by Oliver Stone and how political it is. I think this is a very political film. It looks like a movie about drug dealing and mafia only, but behind that sort of wall, behind that surface, I think it lays a very, very political movie, and I really appreciate that, and I think it's beautiful and interesting, and I hope someday someone would make this movie again. Why not? In a contemporary take, because the political idea that is behind this film is very contemporary and could be retold and could be retold again many times. So you just need to find the right heart and the right vision, as we've been talking.
Yeah, because isn't it too challenging to touch a cornerstone of cinema like that in retell the story.
Well, it is, but we forget that this was already a remake by, you know, it's a great movie, the first one. And I remember when somebody asked Al Pacino back in the day, what do you think that, you know, someone is remaking this film? And he said, well, that's a remake already. He would say, that's what we do in America. We remake the movies. Of course, it's scary. And I think the reason why it hasn't been made is because of the respect that everyone has for this film. But I think that you could give it a shot. I think it's a very universal story. You can try. And if someone tries and fails, then you can go and say, oh, you should have done it. But let that person do it. I'm not going to be the one, by the way. But
we can go to the French section if you want.
Yes, okay. Elevator to the gallows, I think it's in English. It's so hard to talk about this, but I see this and I think on Miles Davis melodies. It's likely, maybe if it's not the best, it's one of the really best you know, soundtracks for a film ever made. And the story on how was it made is incredible. Because I think it was, I could get this wrong, but what I remember, the myth is that Rimal made the movie and then Miles Davis came to Paris to do concerts, you know, and then they met and then Miles Davis went to see the film and quickly start playing on top of it as he was seeing the images. And that's how it became, how this music was created, and then they recorded it and properly. But yeah, it's a mystery. I don't know how to describe this. It's a thriller maybe with this incredible interpretations with this music. It's like it's a movie that is floating in Paris. I don't know how to describe it. It's like I don't even remember if the camera was in motion or not. It's a movie that I've seen a few times, but it's a movie that I really, really love. And it's just I don't know. Jean Moreau, it feels like from another world, and it feels you know, that this idea of these old movie stars, you know, movie stars that are not. They're not the same today. I think there's a relationship with movie stars from the past that this could take me to this, to Kristen Stewart. Great, perfect. That I think she's, for me, she's an actress that belongs to that, you know, ideas of a movie star from the 20s or 30s or 40s, from the past, you know. And I saw this film from Olivier Assayas, Personal Shopper, and I really loved it. And this was signed by Mr. Assayas, so there you go. I really loved the film, and I discovered Kristen. And then because of this film, I saw more of her work, and then I invited to do Spencer with us. She did.
What you think?
There's a lot in Assayas' work that I really admire. But this film is very special for me because I love the film and it helped me to discover Kristen, so it's a good mix. Voilà, Claire, Denis.
C'était un plateau aride qui se terminait en terrasse. Des vestiges de baraquements construits pour des ouvriers. C'est dans cet espace désolé que nous nous sommes installés.
It's an incredible film on masculinity, and what's obviously very interesting, there is a film about masculinity made by a woman that has such a beautiful perspective and all these bodies in Africa, I think. I don't know, it's a very sensual film, very beautiful, and has this, you know, what stayed with me is this a very complicated idea of work and masculinity that is photographed with such a tenderness and rudeness at the same time. It's an unforgettable film that is very singular and magnifique. I would agree with this quote here. I don't think there's another movie like this one. It's very unique. And again, what was she chasing? What was her vision? What did Claire Denis saw before she made this movie? Very curious to think. Like most movies are about ghosts, I think. about images that chase the filmmakers that they're able to produce and create for us to see. What were the ghosts of her? Because there's another ghost maker here, Monsieur Godard, who did this film.
C'est à l'heure où s'allument les lumières de la ville que commence la ronde sans espoir des filles de la rue.
It's very beautiful, and I think that it has the best title ever of a film, Vivre sa vie, right? Which is what you do in movies, no? You live that people's life for whatever the extension of the film, and this is obviously, you know, another collaboration with Anna Karina, and the way that the movie is told, the period that it represents. I don't know. This is, what is this, from early '60s, I think, and it's a very Godard French cinema that was going on in the world, and the impact that this movie had, I think, is not spoken enough. I think this film, I think it has had a huge impact in the world, and especially in filmmakers. And for some reason, a lot of filmmakers don't like to talk about Godard. They feel, I don't know, jealous for sure, but they feel like, I think they feel minimized. We feel minimized. We could all feel minimized by Godard and his incredible extension of cinema. But I think it's a good thing to feel, you know, frightened by an artist of this size and scale, and it's good to not only good to talk about it. It's good to talk about the films, and especially I'm very into lately about the films that he did last in his life, these documentaries, realism socialist.
Was machten Sie Avenue Foch en 1943?
Dégage, horrible gamin.
And those movies, I think, they're very interesting, and he became someone that was using politics and abstraction in his movies, and that's something very beautiful and touching and interesting. It's like, I remember I was going to see a doctor, and on the radio they say that Godard has died, and he decided to use euthanasia, you know, and take his life, and it was very moving. And I stopped. I remember I was driving. I stopped, and I thought about, you know, the implication of his cinema in cinema, in the history of cinema, and in my life. So it's just wonderful that we had him, that he brought up everything. I think that's what it is, no?
Yeah, and the thing with this movie, but also Cassavetes, is the fact that they film women in an instant of crisis. This is something that we find also in your cinema. Why is it a good time, a good space to film and tell the story of someone?
Crisis?
Yeah.
Well, because when someone, I think any of us would be in a crisis, would probably show who we really are. The more I grow up, the more I understand that any of us would be defined by our crisis. We're not the people that we really are in the good times, I think. We know who we are in the bad days, in the crazy times, in the crisis. That's what really defined us. And I think, I agree, Cassavetes and probably Godard in this film were filmmakers that really were able to capture people, women in these cases, that were going through certain crisis. And yeah, I've tried to do that too. I've tried to film that. I don't know with what level of success. Time will tell. But I think it's important because it's you gotta shake the tree. I think you have to move everything, and hopefully be able to capture whatever comes out of that tree. That would probably define that character well, and it also makes a movie less predictable, and I like that. In general, I think that female characters are more interesting than male characters. If you can put on a movie an unpredictable character in an unpredictable situation, you would have an unknown outcome, and that is always exciting to see, and especially if the actor can carry that mystery, then you could probably have a movie. But yeah, I think you're right. I've been very interested on how certain specific idea of certain specific women have been portrayed on cinema before, in the past. And it's interesting because we were just talking about this film, which is maybe the opposite. It's a woman filming masculinity. And there is a form of crisis here. I wonder how many crises are here, you know? There might be millions of ideas of crisis.
And inside of us too.
I think it's all we do, of course. I'm carrying a couple, and you guys too, don't try to avoid it.
Konbini!